Hi everyone, I'm attorney Vincent Hein with Russell Law Offices, and in this video I'm going to talk about eligibility for disability in Wisconsin. Now, when I say in Wisconsin, it's a little bit misleading because it's a federal program, so it applies to all of the states. And here we're talking about Social Security disability. So we're not talking about disability through your private disability insurance or through an employer-sponsored disability insurance policy. So let's get into it. There are 5 steps, and the first one is there substantial gainful activity, or SGA? And this can be kind of rephrased to just say, are you working, and if so, how much are you making? In 2024, if you gross $1,550 or more, you are ineligible for Social Security disability. So you don't go to the next step, right? If you have that much money or more, you are simply ineligible. And so there are some expenses that you can net out, but in my experience, those are fairly hard to make that calculation actually work. So generally, you can take a look at how much money you make per month, and if it equals that SGA amount of $1,550 or more, then you simply are not eligible. And so this can be a tough explanation I have to give to potential clients, that basically I have to say, look, you're going to have to stop working or reduce your hours significantly if you actually want to apply, which a lot of times simply does not make sense. So it is a sequential process. There are 5 steps. If you don't make it past step 1, you don't go to step 2. Well, let's assume you don't have SGA, and now you move to step 2. Step 2 now is your disability or the impairments severe enough? And by that, the question is it likely to last, or has it already lasted 12 months or more, or will it result in your death? And so most of the time, step 2 is not an issue. Sometimes we need a little bit of an explanation from a doctor if it's kind of early on, and there's some questions about how long it will last. But most of the time, this is not where the fight is, at least not in my experience. So let's assume now you got past steps 1 and 2, you did not have SGA, it is severe enough, and now we're moving to step 3. Step 3 is, do you meet or equal a listing? A listing is really, it's a big catalog that Social Security has about different impairments. And this can be for anxiety and depression, or it could be for, various forms of cancer, etc. And so if you meet or equal the listing, then you are disabled. You don't have to continue going, and you will be awarded disability. Typically, to do this, we need a lot of objective medical evidence. If it's on the physical side of things as opposed to the psychological, x-rays, CAT scans. Generally, it's very helpful to get an opinion of one of your doctors as well. But if you meet or equal the listing, equal means you don't exactly meet it, but you're kind of close in other ways, then that's that. You are disabled, we don't need to keep going. If you don't meet or equal the listing, then we need to keep going to the next step. And this is at the point where they would do an assessment, they being the reviewer or the administrative law judge if you're in a hearing. They would do an assessment to see what is your RFC, your residual functional capacity. And that's where there's been a review of your medical records, and there's been a determination of how much you can lift, how many hours a day you can sit or stand, are there any limitations with grasping or overhead reaching, etc. A lot of it is simply, can you do light work or can you do sedentary work? What category do you fall into? So I won't get into all of that right now, but there will be at some point, if you don't meet the listing, right, and you're going to move to the next step, an assessment of what is your residual functional capacity. In other words, how much work could you do in a vocational setting? Can you stand most of the day, or are you going to be in a chair all day? right? If you're in a chair, do you need lots of breaks? All of those kinds of things. So let's say now you don't have substantial gainful activity, so you've passed step 1. Your impairments are severe enough so that you moved on from step 2 now to step 3. You don't meet the listing, and so now we're moving on to step 4. Step 4 is, can you perform past relevant work? Past relevant work is any job you held long enough in the past 15 years to be able to learn it and perform it. And it might be getting shortened to 5 years, but currently it's still at 15. And so if you had one job where you were running a drill press for 15 years, and now you've got a bad back and you can't stand, well, that would start to point towards disability. However, if you had a second job where you were in an office sometimes and you could sit and stand and move around, maybe then you're not disabled because you had that second job somewhere in those 15 years. So that's an important analysis, and the Social Security Administration does have access to prior employment data. So that's where we have to be very careful and make sure we identify all of the past work you've done 15 years prior to your application. So let's keep going here. So now let's say you cannot perform past work. Now if you can't perform past work, then now we go on to step 5, and now the burden shifts. So steps 1 through 4, the burden is on you, the claimant. Now at step 5, the burden shifts to the government to prove you can do other jobs out there that exist in the national economy. And this is where we get some weird jobs that we don't really see anymore. You know, something involving microfilm or microfiche, right? I've had church sexton brought up, tube operator, that's the old tubes like you would see at a bank in like the 80s where you put the tube in, right? So there's some goofy things out there that are considered. One thing we didn't include here is if you're 50 or older, there's another avenue called gridding out using the medical vocational guidelines, which can come in very, very handy, but it is for older workers. So I didn't mention that as part of the 5 steps here, but that would be part of the analysis for certain workers. So you've got to get past these steps. The easiest starting point is to look at number 1, do you have substantial gainful activity? Are you earning $1,550 gross income per month or more? Because if you are, you simply are not disabled, and we don't need to really analyze the other steps unless we want to do so in the context of a future filing for disability. So those are the 5 steps. Again, this is for Social Security disability. These same 5 steps would apply if it's supplemental security income, SSI, or if it's SSDI. Either way, this is the same evaluation process. Thank you for watching. Again, this video is on Social Security disability. I'm attorney Vincent Hein. I do elder law and disability for Russell Law Offices. Thank you.